David Jackson, welcome to the Crop Podcast. David is the marketing director at Winnow, and thank you so much for being on. It's lovely to have you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Could you just give us an introduction as to who you are and actually what Winnow is all about?
At the age of 15, I knew I wanted to be a marketer. So I did a work experience at a market research agency. It was probably helpful that my first foray into market research was live testing of cognac. And maybe that kind of had some kind of bearing. I was like, oh, this seems pretty good. I could get involved with this. And I went on to study kind of management studies and marketing in Manchester. And I cut my teeth at The Guardian 20 plus years ago. I went and did a great traineeship at American Express. And that led to my second chapter. So having got trained up, I moved into the charity sector. And over the next kind of 7 or so years, I'd worked for international development NGOs. I'd go and work agency side, doing comms and storytelling and fundraising for WaterAid and the British Trust and other big charities. And then my final chapter, where I am now, started about 10 or 11 years ago. Winnow helps hospitality businesses. So probably we're most famous for our work with IKEA. So if you go into any IKEA customer restaurant, around the world, you find our technology that is so if you're watching this, you can see it behind me. It's a terminal that goes above the bin, and it will record using motion camera and then using AI to identify food that's going into the bin. And then we give teams analytics and reporting to be able to understand what they're throwing away and help them to cut that food waste in half. And today we're saving our customers $100 million worth of food every year, which is a big step for us. Our goal is to save $1 billion worth of food, and we've got a plan to get to that point.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And I can see why you'd be so drawn to an organization like this, considering your career trajectory up to this moment. Did you find that your experience with storytelling, did that play a part in your approach? Has that been a really, I would imagine, a big part in the evolution and growth of the business?
Yeah. I think with any new technology that's being adopted by any group, the thing that's really important is that your if you think about your diffusion of innovation curve, and your early adopters are going to want to try new things. But to get to that crucial early majority kind of phase of the adoption of a new technology, that group need to see peers, people like them, using and validating and talking about that new technology. We wanted to show chefs in chef whites in situ, with the technology present, talking about how this had made their lives easier, that it saved them time, that they'd be able to drive waste down and save money. And that had to come from the user with credibility. In addition, we're selling to large businesses, and people within those businesses not only need to see peers, other chefs, and they need to see people from their business validating the technology and results. So we now have content programs for all of our key accounts, and as much of that is communicating to the other people within those large businesses, as well as the chef community at large. Celebrity chef in the UK, Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, he's a big campaigner, big personality, lots of clout on social media, as well as a well-established face on TV. We worked with him and his restaurant. He was in about 2015, I think, running some food waste campaigns that running into 2016, and we installed our technology in one of his restaurants, and that's the way that we start to build momentum for this new technology.
I think there's probably actually a lot of companies in, let's say, like the sort of food waste space, for example, who probably aren't doing a lot of video production and probably haven't grown as rapidly. I think sometimes people may be scared of it, or just think, oh, this isn't going to work. It's a bit too, it's a bit too out there. But it's obviously been critical to your strategy, right?
Video is really, really important because, again, it's your peer-to-peer type content where it's not only someone in a chef white that's on the other side of the world. It also has to be somebody that understands the locale, somebody that, has relevance in that community or kind of in that kind of subsector of an industry. And I think that's crucially important, and video is going to be one of the best ways of establishing that quickly at scale.
Of all the content that you've made, is there one particular series or film that you think has had the most impact or the most tangible results?
I mean, the most viewed video is when we launched our AI product, Winnow Vision. We launched that in 2019 with IKEA, and this was really the first product of its type coming to market at scale. And when we launched the product in March 2019, we were the second most viewed story on the BBC News site, so close to
Wow.
being first. We got billions of kind of views in reach. We were able to very quickly then establish that the credibility of that product and then go and scale it. So from that point to now, we're now in over 3,500 locations around the world. It's one of, if not the most adopted kind of AI tool in the back of house. So I think video was really important on that front. And that's probably that one video is probably the most impactful.
This AI product launched in 2019. I feel like that's ahead of the curve for the AI boom, because it feels like in the last couple of years, it's really kind of kicked off, and almost every other news story you see now, certainly for me, seems to be AI related. You guys are way ahead there. Has that helped you in a way, being so kind of established with that, or ahead of the curve in terms of getting ahead in the market, for example?
The field of AI that Winnow Vision primarily operates in is computer vision. So that's the practice of teaching machines to be able to see and to recognize. So in our case, it's teaching a machine to be able to recognize food items as they go into the bin. Equipping culinary teams with cutting edge technology should help them to reduce the amount of admin, to reduce the amount of time they're wasting producing food, which ultimately ends up in the bin, reduce them wasting money that may put that business at risk, or at least limit its commercial potential, and then do what chefs want to do and give them time to go back and spend time either with their team, developing talent within their team and coaching, or to being creative with food. And that for us is the role that AI has to play within our niche.
How does AI, or the seeming like ever increasing amount of AI out there, affect you guys from a storytelling perspective, particularly when you're trying to really be authentic and use emotionally charged or emotionally led storytelling?
I think the word there is authentic. I think there will always be a place for content and stories which are clearly authentic, real, and in particular, if we're trying to onboard people into a new idea or a new way of thinking, I think human to human has to be the way. You have to have a real story to point to. Like, AI is not going to cut it. And even worse, I think if you use AI content poorly, you can burn the trust that you may have earned, through a sales conversation, for example. And so, the approach that we take at Winnow is there's always going to be a need for real, authentic content that's told in an emotional way that resonates with an audience, that is, sensitive and empathetic to the real world experience that group are going through, and that is interesting or inspiring, or has some other type of emotional property that really just AI can't do. And that makes me think of like a film that I shot with my now wife. This is in a place called Rasinga Island, which is on Lake Victoria, almost on the border with Uganda. So we're like right to the west of Kenya. And it's a really beautiful place and amazing people, but it's also an incredibly poor place. And in parts of the island, there was a 40% HIV rate. And so where you have a very high HIV rate, unfortunately, you have a lot of orphaned children. We wanted to try and tell the story of, what was happening at a macro level in this locale. But what came out most clearly was this just strength and resilience of the women who would do anything to provide a living, provide means for their children, and to try and fight against an incredibly challenging environment. that they were faced with. For me, that was really interesting because it really showed me you need to understand and listen to and empathize with your contributors in order for you to be able to tell their story. And that's something that I've tried as hard as I can to take into the work that we do at Winnow, and thinking about, who are the protagonists in this story? How do we allow them to share some of their, their journey in the platform that we're building for them?
Yeah. So you've already helped clients save $100 million in food waste. The target is $1 billion, which is huge and very admirable. What are the biggest challenges for you in terms of getting there, that you see?
Globally, food wasted in restaurants and hotels and in hospitality, and food that's wasted in the home, at the farm, at the manufacturing stage, in retail. It's about $1 trillion worth of food that's wasted
Wow.
every year. In the hospitality space, we estimate around $100 billion worth of food is wasted every year, and we're trying to save $1 billion of that. So just to kind of put the goal in context. In terms of how we get there, it is about scaling technology that we know works, right? So proof point, IKEA, we've been working with them for over 10 years. In 2022, they announced that they'd halved their food waste working with Winnow worldwide, saving the business $37 million. So we need more of that. It's relatively straightforward to halve food waste in one kitchen. What we need now is to scale. And so coming back to storytelling, how do you tell that story? We need to show the art of the possible. So we've talked a lot about storytelling from the chef's perspective. It's also important to tell it from the business leader's perspective.
Could you share one piece of advice to help someone try and best communicate their brand story?
Yeah. So one tip I would have for all storytellers trying to get the narrative across from a brand perspective is think about and try and listen to your audience and build high levels of empathy with who you're talking to. Because if you can start to understand people and hear them, you become immeasurably better and more capable as a storyteller.
Is there anything that you think brands misunderstand about creating videos for B2B markets?
I think one of the things that is misunderstood about content, storytelling, marketing in the B2B space is that it's 100% rational, right? Because you're selling to another business. Don't forget that people make decisions based on emotion. And bringing that into your storytelling in some way, I don't think is an option anymore. And I think you have to think about what's the emotional response that you want to elicit. What's the best way of delivering that? Who is going to deliver that? And how do I come up with a creative way of making sure that it lands? And that's awesome, frankly, for us as B2B marketers, because that is creative, it is human, and it's something that, for me as a marketer is what gets me out of bed every day. And so not losing the emotion and remembering that, we're selling to people in the same way that you're selling to people in a B2C business as well.
Perfect. I think that's all of my questions. Thank you, David. Thank you so much.